Hi, I'm MTG and welcome to my channel where today we're going to be doing a deck building challenge where we're going to open a collector booster pack and then try to pick a card, specifically a legendary creature card, and see what commander deck we can build around it. So we're going to be pulling not just from any old set that's already out, but from Commander Masters. And a huge thank you to Wizards for sending out some awesome product to their MTG Ambassador Program members. So thank you so much again for doing that. It feels very surreal that I'm having a chance to take a look at this. I cannot wait to see what amazing cards we pull out of the pack that we're going to open and what commander creature we're going to build around. So with no further ado, let's just go crack open a pack and I'll see you in a second. All right, friends, here is the moment that we have been waiting for. Let's open one of these packs. Ugh, if I can physically open it. Ugh. Don't want to rip the box. But I am Smashly. Wouldn't be the first time. Should see me try and open mail. All right, here we are. Ooh, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 packs right here. And I think my heart is telling me to open this one first. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm very excited to see what we're going to get. And I may have mixed up my packs from the first one that I picked. So who knows? I'm just messing with myself at this point, huh? So I can't reclose this apparently. I'm so skilled. The anticipation. All right, there we are. Beautiful. Now to the pack. So I'm trying to think of I don't even know what I'm hoping to brew for. I feel like my favorite lately has been white green, and I don't know if I'm just biased towards Sigarda. Oh my gosh, can I even open this pack? I'm scared to open it too aggressively. Open. Here we are. Whoop, whoop. Ooh, there we have an interesting token. We're gonna flip it. Gutter Snipe is good. Gutter Snipe is spicy. We have Entourage of Trest, which is also good. We have Wanderer Strike. So exile target creature, then proliferate. Okay. Ooh, could always use Feed the Swarm. Always good in your black deck specifically if they don't have your white or green access for enchantment removal. Herald of the Host. Ooh, Myriad. That seems interesting. Ooh, Ariel, Knight of Windgrace. That could be fun. Actually, I've wanted to build around this commander for a while, so I think this will be great. Then we have a really pretty foil Plains here, so I'll set that off to the side. Ooh, Elvish Mystic. You know, I have an Elf Ball deck in Pioneer and in Commander, so this is gorgeous art for it. Ooh, and I love this counter spell. We're getting some good cards from this pack. Factor Fiction. That's absolutely... Oh my god, I just saw the card underneath. That is amazing. And oh my goodness, a foil Jeweled Lotus. That is just amazing. I feel very fortunate for that. Actually, I'm just going to set it off to the side here. Oh yes. Okay. This is going to be a very spicy commander. So we have Heartless, who deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total rounded down. That can be a very brutal commander. I think one of the first times I went to an LGS store, someone was rocking this and they just murdered the whole table in I want to say 2 turns. It was something crazy. Basically, this is definitely a commander that you need to remove on site. So they are rare. That might be a one that we want to build around, but I, again, am kind of connected to that Ariel with the Knight synergy, especially if I'm aiming for more mid-power. Ooh, and then we got Narcy, Fable Scener. They are a really pretty card. I don't know how clear that art is to you right there, but goodness, the sky on that is just absolutely gorgeous. So we have lifelink, and whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, you draw a card, which seems very good. And whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that saga's mana value. So I'm thinking this might be a commander that we want to build around, considering how many cool things that we've gotten for sagas from these last few sets. There's some really spicy things we could do with this commander, especially in this color combo. So I will go ahead, and that is a mythic, so we'll set it here. Oh, and we got a Pure Steel Paladin, which is also an amazing card with some gorgeous art. So if you have any kind of equipment deck, this is definitely a friend that you want to add. And oh my goodness, this pack has spoiled us. I have pulled a foil Jeweled Lotus, a second one. I'm like kind of like in awe right now. Holy crap. What? Okay, well, wow. Okay. I need to get some stuff to protect these cards, but before I go do that, gotta decide on the commander that we're building around. And currently, I'm feeling like these two I have the most inspiration for. So I think I'm gonna actually try building something around Narcy Fablesinger because they are new. So why not hop on into that? And yeah, so let's go start the deck building, and I'll get back to you with the list that I put together. All right, so we have opened our pack, and we decided that we're gonna build something for Narcy Fablesinger. So other than the absolute, gorgeous artwork on this like sunset that we have here, our commander that we're building with has lifelink, and whenever you sacrifice an enchantment, draw a card, and whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the saga's mana value. So we have the potential to do some pretty decent drain damage here, and maybe not enough that's going to be like super explosive, or hopefully our commander's not going to be drawing as much hate as maybe other kind of enchantresses builds do. We will have the potential to draw a ton of cards if we lean a lot into sacrifice and enchantment, because we could do like sacrifice enchantment creatures kind of stuff, or anything like along those lines, which, because we again are in white and black and green, we should have the ability to make a lot of tokens, and we should have the ability to easily sacrifice creatures to our commander's ability to trigger them at least, and try to get some card draw from there. So thinking about like this commander overall, like what kind of draws me the most to them out of the other cards that we picked is, one, I like the fact that they are 4 CMC, so that they have a higher chance of being able to recast them multiple times in a game, especially if there's a lot of removal. And they're also a 3/3, which means that if there's like a Massacre Worm effect, they survive. So we have at least a decent body to this commander, and a lot of value that you're just getting overall. So if we're looking again at what this commander wants to do, it's pretty obvious that we kind of want some sort of enchantress sort of build around it. And so we want to focus on enchantress synergies, which thankfully there are a lot of things that care about enchantments. And then maybe as a secondary type of focus here is going to be figuring out what kind of enchantments or sagas in this case that we want to use to drain out our opponents for the win. So I think if we look at that's just kind of like what enchantress has as a shell in their toolkit as a whole, we have a ton of different ways to, one, protect our enchantments and draw a ton of cards, and then also reduce the cost of our enchantments just as a whole. So there's a lot of really good cards. And I think like some of the best card draw pieces are going to be ones that do more than just, get you card draw, which you're like, oh my gosh, what do you mean just? But in regards to they hit the board and what additional pieces of value do they offer outside of card draw. So our Grothian Enchantress, that was hard for me to say. I like them because they have Shroud. So they're harder to remove, and any card that comes in with built-in protection is always a positive. And then Sithis Harvest Hand is super cheap to cast, but also it's going to gain you quite a bit of life and draw you a lot of cards if your opponents don't deal with it early. And then for protection pieces, we have Sterling Grove, which is pretty sweet because we'll be able to give Shroud to our enchantments, which stonks money cash there. And then we also have Heroic Intervention in this color combination, which will give, protection to our stuff, everything, permanence. So that's huge if you have a bunch of sagas on the board and you want to prevent like an Austere Command from blowing them all up. Same with Teferi's Protection. Teferi's Protection is huge, especially if you're trying to dodge exile effects, then, you have a way to stay alive through like a farewell. So I think like protection is going to be super important because there are a lot of different things either attached to a body, instant sorcery, whatever that is going to be able to easily blow up enchantments. So it doesn't hurt to think about like what are some ways that you can get through some destruction, some, exile effects for your enchantments. And then enchantment reduction pieces, we have things like Starnheim Corsair or Jukai Naturalist that just say, enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast, and those effects eventually stack up. So if you have a bunch of those effects in your deck, you're potentially just reducing your enchantments by a heck of a lot, and just the ability to dump your hand hopefully and just keep up the pressure on your opponents, and then obviously refilling your hand with all the card draw that you potentially have just by casting enchantments. So from my experience, at least with like saga decks and ones that focus on just really getting through like all the chapters in the sagas, the main drawback is that it kind of telegraphs a lot of like what you're trying to do. And sometimes the answers, like if it's an exile effect or a board wipe or something, just don't get to those steps fast enough in those sagas. So something to kind of help us maximize whatever value we're trying to get, I think proliferation effects are going to be hugely important, because you can proliferate your saga counters, get through those chapters faster, and hopefully get to the point where 1, you're getting the value that you needed, and then 2, get that commander's trigger where we go through the final chapter and then we drain out our opponents for some additional life loss damage that we get through. And then the other thing too is, again, kind of touching on the protection pieces of it, is you really, really want to make sure that not only are we proliferating through things, but we are keeping our board state protected, because again, these sagas telegraph a lot of value that you're going to be getting because everyone can see like what chapter you're on. So it's really important to, 1, figure out ways to proliferate, and then again, keep those things alive as you're proliferating them, because it's a feels bad moment if you pour all this mana and then it just, gets blown up. So WinCon, I think for this commander as well, at least the one that I'm going to try to focus on, because I'm thinking more of like a mid-power-ish type build, would be through like our commander's ability with drain, and then having some supporting values with like making our creatures stronger, and just kind of having like some sort of static effects that build up with like some sort of creature gets +X for each enchantment that you control or something like that, and it just allows you to go ahead and hit base. And then I think some like cool sagas that are going to be really helpful for us to help maximize our value here is War of the Last Alliance. So you get to search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So let's say like we need to proliferate something. We could use this to tutor up Yawgmoth, which Yawgmoth lets you proliferate if you pay 2 Swampy Poos, and then you discard a card and you can proliferate. So I think that's going to be like a really cool way to kind of figure out like what kind of answers you need to go for, and even like get card draw effects, like maybe you need Sithis or something, so you could grab Sithis. So this is going to be like a really cool card that you can use to get a ton of value. And then this card too that I've played a lot with like in Historic Brawl is Son of Freyalise. So until your next turn, creatures you control get tap 1, add 1 mana of any color, so it's good for ramp. But then for the step 3, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible, so this potentially could let you close out a game, hit face for a lot of damage. And then I also like Eldest Reborn, because if you want to get something from like maybe your opponent's graveyards or fill up your opponent's graveyards, that this could be like a potentially good way to do that. So step 1, you're forcing people to sacrifice stuff. Step 2, you're forcing people to discard stuff. And then you can pick essentially from a graveyard and put a creature or planeswalker from their graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So that can be pretty spicy, but then also it costs 5 mana, so you could potentially drain out your opponents again for 5 life loss there. So that's pretty cool. And then this other one that I like, because when it flips, it just can boost up your board so much with counters, but Jugan defends the temple. So step 1, you make a 1/1 green monk that can tap for a forest. You can put +1/+1 counter on up to 2 creatures. And then third step, you exile, and it flips to this dragon that basically whenever you cast a creature spell, you can pay X and add counters to stuff. So it's pretty sweet, and I honestly like really love that card. That's another one I put in a lot of my Historic Brawl decks. And then I'm not sure how like the ruling would work with this, and I can't really ask a judge yet. I think like the Phyrexian Praetors would be super interesting to figure out like if those get through their saga chapters, and when they flip back to the creature side, if on their front side, figuring out like if the CMC on the front of those cards would be like what you would drain, or if it would just like maybe your commander sees it as 0. I'm not really sure, but usually when you're playing with like cards that are multimodal, like facing, it usually does whatever the front side of the card is. So I'd be curious to check in with the judge, like how those Saga Praetors would play into like the interaction with the commander here. And then some other cards that I think have some really great synergy with this commander overall is going to be like Brilliant Restoration. So we go through our sagas, we need to get them back, some sort of like recursion ability for getting different sagas out of our graveyard back onto the battlefield are huge. And you know, white and green have a lot of tutor effects for, you know, getting different enchantments that maybe you need. So we have like Idyllic Tutor or Calyx, the Planeswalker one. I forget the full name of it, but there'll be the picture here, so hopefully you can look at that one. Those kind of abilities I think are going to be huge for just how this, you know, deck goes overall. And we are in Enchantress, and we're in 3 colors, so there's so many directions you can take this if you want, and so much value. So I'm gonna just keep like working on this deck list for a bit, you know, make some swaps over time, see what other cards drop, and maybe keep upgrading this. But I would love to hear your thoughts. What are some cool cards that you would like to see with this commander? And if you have a chance, what you thought of the deck list. So thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye.